Okay, so I had started recording and then the server died out on me or froze, so I'm starting over. Um, we save the logo wherever you generally save it. I save it to downloads so that they're always in the same place when I go to pull them. Um, and this is going to be, I forgot to mention, this is for VW Fundraising, which is one group that we only have a single brochure for that's current from 2020. Um, and that brochure is set up to be rotary style on the metal logos, and there's only 6 items. And at the end, you do need to save these down as JPEGs of each one. So as we make them, we'll do that also. And in this case, the brochure is slightly older, so we don't have the setup where the logos hover over the blank designs to be filled in easily. So in this case, we will actually have to save the JPEGs ahead of time and then relink them in here for each of the 6 items. So we'll get to that. But for starters, you want to see what the email says. We've got the team name and the colors. Brian's requesting that the TUM 20 on the brochure be red. So this needs to be red, and we'll have to change the price sheet and this text to match that. It's going to be online, which is why we're saving the images. They have no start date, but they do have the state and all the other info we need. So on the web tracker file, which is under the U drive, logs, and then web tracker, you're going to add it in, which I already did. The number, of course, goes in order, and you may have to look up which initials are the abbreviation, because some of these use two, and then occasionally, like Megado, they put MDF for Megado Fundraising. I don't know why there's not a set system for this, but it varies. So if you don't know by memory, you need to look up the distributor name and see how we've abbreviated in the past. On this one, it's just VW, and then the current number is 18864. So I wrote that. I put the team name and school name, the state we have, and the distributor name we have. So the only thing we're missing is the date, which can come later on. So for save it, and you copy the number for their online, and then you can close this. And we'll go ahead and paste the number into the brochure, which I didn't go into full detail, but brochures are always under the group's name and then underscore brochures, and then look for the most current year, or if there is no year folder, look for the most currently dated file. You may need to ask, if there's no clear file to pick and there's a bunch of jumbled files in there, you may have to ask somebody, which would be me, uh, which one to use. But in this case, it's pretty clear because there's only one in that folder for 2020, and there are no 2021 ones. So, anyways, now we need to make the folder, which I may have already made. I can't remember because the connection had died, so I kind of had to start over. Oh yeah, I already made it. And then you make a folder for the try flat file, which is what we use to make these mock-ups, and then a Z-Links folder for all of the JPEGs that are going to be saved. So you always have a Z-Links, and you almost always have a SWB try or SWB 20 or both to start with, because most files now are going to have one or both of those in them. So we're ready to, I'm going to go ahead and save the template. Actually, I always forget that because this is the template file, and we actually want it to be saved as its own. For Shawnee under Z-Links, I'll just change the end of the file name to Shawnee Redskins. Whoops. And then once we save that, we can go ahead and start making the flat file for the plastic tumblers. And I usually use my recent files to just pick a flat file, but the true, the legit way to get a flat file would be to go into our templates folders, which is under the brochures for tumblers folder, which you should have a link for over here, and then templates, and then new 2021 templates, and then PDF flats. and it's the bottom. Well, in this case, it's the bottom. It's the SWB try file, which is just a generic template that's laid out how we generally lay these out. So before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and save it as the file we're going to be making, so I don't save over the template. And it's in VW Shawnee, and put it in the try folder, and change the school name to Shawnee Redskins. So now we're ready to actually make the file. We have the logo in our downloads folder because that's where I put it. So in this case, let's see how good or bad it is. It is big enough that we can vectorize it pretty easy. So let's just kind of see how that goes. Strangely, I'm missing my toolbar, so I must have accidentally messed up my toolbars. Let's see if I can get back. There they are. Okay. So the way I got that was the Essentials toolbar. There's different presets. You probably have your own preferences there, but just to get the image trace up here, I do that. And also to have the image trace box over here, you go to Window and Image Trace. Well, oh, there it is. So you just make sure that's clicked, and you can position it. I use it so frequently I leave it up. So under the drop down for image trace, you're going to select, there's 4 colors. So I'll start with 6 and edge it back to 4. And we'll see. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact if there's exactly 4, but I can see gray smudges now because I did it that way. So let's just do 4, maybe up the paths. And I usually lower noise. See, now I kind of screwed it up. I'm probably gonna have to do 5 colors at least, just because of the way it is. I'm gonna turn off preview for a second so it'll stop rendering it. I'll do 298 and maybe slightly sharpen it. Change this to 5 because it's not recognizing the white, which really doesn't matter. We could delete that. We're going to delete that outer layer, but I'm just trying to see if it will recognize the white. Let's preview now and see what we get. It didn't work, but we can either up it to 6 or just delete the outer layer because that's going to be cleared anyways. I'll go ahead and do 6 again just to see. It should at least show the white. And I'll just have it ignore white now to clear that out. That's cleaner than manually deleting it. So now we can expand it. This is going to be shrank down anyways, so detail wise it doesn't have to be too perfect, but now that we have it kind of free floating, I think adding a white stroke would be a good idea. So I'll hit Control C to copy, Control F to paste directly over it, then hold Shift and arrow up about 4 times, and then click the back layer that you just copied over. And on the paths, which I usually have open, I accidentally closed it earlier. I'm going to go ahead and get my boxes out real quick. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. So on the Pathfinder, while we have that back layer selected, we're going to unite to solidify all of it. And there's still some patchy areas, but I think it's okay. You can try solidifying it more to fix that. For the color, just do all white and then stroke that. You can also type all F's for the to get white quicker. It's easier for me to mouse it right now. And then make sure the stroke is aligned to the outside so it's thicker, and maybe do 3 to 4 point. I mean, this is all personal preference. This isn't part of the request, but I always add this because it just looks better and helps the logo pop off whatever the background is. And then I drop shadow behind that white layer. And then you can go ahead and hold shift and arrow this back down once you click it. So that just helps it stand out a little. The name, it's Shawnee Redskins. They already have the S, so I guess we can just put Redskins. They do generally expect the name to be with the logo, and with the letter S there, it kind of makes it weird. I'm trying to decide if we want to add the full word Shawnee and Redskins or just Redskins. I'm just going to do Redskins. If they have a problem with it, they'll tell the rep and we do. We'll have to fix it. Because it just seems weird to have S and then Shawnee and then Redskins. I don't know. Once again, it's kind of personal preference since no one gave us any direction here. So, let's look at the email to make sure. They just wrote Shawnee High School Redskins, and normally these will have a spot that says team name, and then it would say Shawnee Redskins or just Redskins, but there isn't. This email in particular just doesn't say that, so we're left to kind of guess. You know what? I'm just gonna write Shawnee Redskins. Let's just, because they had sort of the full name in the email. So let's just go ahead and do it. Somehow I've accidentally placed a box there. Let me see if it's still there. Okay, that was a bug then. It was showing the box. Okay, so Shawnee Redskins. Clarity with communication is sometimes not 100% on the emails. Most of the time it's okay, but I'm just saying, if you're ever not clear, you can either do this, like put exactly what was in the email, or ask the question. I would advise asking somebody, but I also feel like if I asked a question on everything that's unclear, I would just be sending work back all day. So I kind of go both ways on that issue. I kind of just do it and see, if 9 times out of 10 it doesn't get returned. So obviously, it's fine to go ahead and just send it off. But if it's really unclear, I would advise asking somebody, asking me first, and then if I don't know, I'll go to Brian most likely. So once I had the text sized, I forgot to say out loud that I'm creating outlines on it, so it's no longer editable text. It's vector art now. And then up the stroke to at least 2, and then click on the alignment to align the stroke to the outside under the stroke menu. And also add a drop shadow to that text just to match it. So colors can be swapped. We could have done white with a red stroke, but this matches the logo a bit. You could also make the color inside this match the gray or just be black. That's up to you, since they didn't specify which color is their main color. It's a little low, so I'm going to raise the design up and center it a little. This line is not exactly on the center, so I usually go slightly to the right of it, not too far. It kind of depends, but there's some wraparound between this border and the cutoff, so you should have less space on this side than this side, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And I don't always go by that grid 100%. So we're gonna put Go Redskin. Ugh, I don't know why it keeps doing this. We're going to put Go Redskins because that's the team name, and we generally just put Go in the team name unless it's a name that doesn't work with that, and we just spell the school name out then. So go Redskins. And we need to change this orange banner to match probably the red. And then I'll add a black stroke. Oops. So up the stroke to about 3. Now for the background, I don't believe they specified that either. No. So it's up to us, and we can pretty much pick any color or background we want. I always default to the grungy, which is under a folder, our background folders, and then grungy. You should have a backgrounds folder on your side, quick links. Now the choice here is going to be either black or gray or red, but we already have red. I'm thinking just do black, because matching that gray has like a cool blue tint to it, so it'd be harder to match. I'll just find the black, which I believe says blackest or blacker or something. Let's see if we can. Usually I find it right away. I don't know. I must have scrolled past it, not paying attention. Purple black. That's really odd. I'm just missing it. Black. Oh, Blackish. That's the name. So, and it's got a little bit of white or light area in the middle, so it'll help this still pop off the back. And that's about it. We've got, I'm going to change the little die line to be teal, because the red doesn't show up as much in that red. That's just a minor thing to look out for. And that's basically it. So let's save. We've already got the file name, so we're just saving over it. And then we need to save the 2 PDFs, which is with and without the die line. So we'll do that real quick. It may take a second because it's still saving it, I think. Yep. Okay, so PDF, save as, change it to PDF on the file type, and leave it saying with die line. And then under the sets, choose high quality, turn off preserve Illustrator editing, and turn on embed page thumbnails. And then after this saves, we're going to turn off the die line, which is just called path in this case. Sometimes it says guide, or it'll say path or guide usually. I think because we went from the template, it's path, so just look for path. That if you're using the template, it should say path. And I honestly need to go relabel everything clearly. I'm just so used to using their old files that are not labeled well that I know where everything is. You just get used to the bad labeling and forget to ever fix it, or forget that you could even fix it. So when you click Save As this time, it's already got the settings you just had, so you don't have to change anything. You just hit Save again. So now we've got the 2 versions of the file for them to print, and we can highlight this and copy it and go into Photoshop, which you generally should have the 3 plastics already open in. If you don't, I'll show, once I paste this in, I'll show where the files are. On the other videos I already showed that, but just in case you're watching this and have forgotten or haven't watched the other ones yet, I'll show you where they're at. It's taking a minute to load. This computer's just like that. Okay, so I usually start with the 24 ounce. You could really start with any of them, but you can paste now on whichever one of the 3 you want to work in, and choose Smart Object or Pixels. I think I was saying the other day Pixels might be smaller file, which means easier to work with. So let's see. I'm so used to using Smart Object, I haven't been doing pixels, but we're gonna try it. It took a while to load in, but it looks fine. It looks about the same as when you do Smart Object, but hopefully it uses less RAM. I don't know really, but we're trying. So once you get you don't have to worry about the side banner. You just want to position the logo in the middle for them to see that. And we'll go ahead and save this as a JPEG. So Control Shift S, find the VW and Shawnee and Z-Links folder, and just save it as a JPEG. You don't have to change the name. And once we have that saved, we can copy it or duplicate it to the other two. So you go to duplicate layer by right clicking, choose 15 ounce first, and click OK, and then duplicate again over to the SWB try. So now we can go edit it in those. It needs to be sandwiched in between the front and back layer. These are, I say this in every video, but everything is an old file here that's been done a certain way for a very long time. So it may seem kind of archaic and messy, but that's just how they do it. And that's how it works with the brochures. So it's stuck with. So it may be like odd to you, or it may not, I don't know. But this is just how our files work. So let's save this one. Whoops, I went to the wrong folder. And we're putting it in the Z-Links again, and JPEG. Now, I believe they only had, I may have just done extra work. Let's see. I think they only had 2 of the 3. Oh yeah, see, we didn't need the 15 ounce. They have the try and the 24 ounce. I should have caught that, but we just needed the 2, but it's okay. We'll just have the extra file in case we need it. So we'll center it. And save it as a JPEG. And remember, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. These are just mock-ups for them to get an idea of what things will look like. And it's also, I think in this case, it's their order form that they will send out. So Z-Links try is the name. So now that we've got that, we can go ahead and link them in. I usually do all this at the very end, but just so you can see it be put together, I'll link them in now. So that was the 24 ounce and a try. And I need to change the name while I'm paying attention to that. Shawnee, oops. I'll go ahead and save real quick. And then we just need to make the rotary version of the EPS file for these, and we need to save the JPEGs. And remember, this TOM20 is going to be red. So to do that, the easiest way would be go to the file that we have open that's got rotary, which is, in this case, I always have HSBC open just by default. Hold Alt and double click over the file, the layer that is the rotary file, and delete what's in there out, and make sure you save it as the Shawnee file that we're going to make. And once you're confident in this process, I sometimes just go ahead and make the logo and then save as, because it takes extra time to save it, make it, and go back and save it again. But as a safety net, so I don't save over the original file I'm doing it, you should generally save it before you change anything. So in the top layer of the Shawnee folder, we want this is what they're going to use to etch on the metal tumblers. So we want this file to be there, and it's already kind of pre-labeled as rotary. That's the other reason to use the Photoshop files to pull from, because it's just already labeled. You could, let me double check and make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing, but I'm pretty sure you can navigate to the squared Photoshop folder. In our templates folder, there's a squared templates file that should have the Husky square, but I actually don't see it, so actually it doesn't. It's just got the templates for the tumblers. So I might copy the Husky ones in there for us to use, but in general, you could easily get to it using these templates by holding Alt and clicking the thumbnail. It links it to it, so that's the quickest way. So we've got our file saved, and what I usually do is, if it, in this case, it's not text only, they actually do want the logo and text. Some schools, we only do text for them because it's just how the deal is set up with them, but in the case of VW Fundraising, they always get rotary with the logo and then the team name below it. So we could copy this logo over and have to edit all the colors to be black and white, or just black rather, but the easiest thing would be to copy the text by itself and then drag the logo in and make it black and white once we're ready. But before I do that, real quick, I want to edit the drop shadow out of this, and also the stroke. And for you, it may be even faster to just retype it and all that, but honestly, I want it to look exactly like it did on the color file. So what I do is just take off the stroke and change it to black and get rid of the drop shadow, because black is the EPS. They need it. They don't necessarily need it to, but they prefer it to be black in the back, and they've had some issues in the past when it wasn't. At least that's what they've said. They've never been too clear on why we need it to be black, but let's just make it black. That's what they want. So I'm going to shrink this a little bit and center it with the alignment tool, and then go back to that downloaded logo that we have and drag it in, and use the image trace tool again and just select black and white logo and touch it up a little bit. I'm going to turn off preview while I do that. I turn noise down, turn the paths up for better detail, click ignore white, and then you can turn preview back on and see. So that looks fine. I mean, we could tweak the threshold for black and white up or down a bit, but it looks decent enough as it is. I might sharpen this a little. It doesn't change very much. I'll just leave it alone. You don't want to waste too much time with tweaking stuff. And then you expand it. So now that we expanded, it's all vectorized, and we can shrink it down. And like I said in a couple other videos, if you prefer or know better ways or have quicker ways of doing all this, and you know what you're doing, then obviously do it the way that flows best for you. As long as the end result works with our whole system, it doesn't matter how you got there. So it's personal preference again. I want the text to be a bit like a lot smaller, but I'm wanting the logo to remain fairly big. So I'll just shrink. Well, I'm gonna have to shrink both quite a bit, but it doesn't have to fit this grid or sort of crop mark 100%. All this is the templates have a crop mark, invisible crop mark that's centered with this. Or not even crop mark, it's just basically a boundary box, an artificial boundary. So it's not super big deal to have it perfectly within the red box here. That's close enough. So You do want to turn that box off though when you're done and just saving the file. So we already had the file name. I'm just saving down, and we can close these now because we're pretty much done with them, and go into Photoshop. And we need to see what all we've got to put in. We need the black koozie, a red Tum 20, a white 28, and the okay. So I don't have any of those open, so I'll show you where to get all those. Under the templates folder inside Brochure for tumblers, the new 2021 templates, and then squared templates. And it's the KOSB file for the koozie, the SWBBK square for that WBBK, the Tum 28 one for the Tum 28, and then the Tum 20 BK and color layers is the one that's got all the colors in it for what we need, which is the red one. So I just select all four by holding control and clicking each one and drag them into the bar in Photoshop. You could open them one at a time, but this is just how I do it. So I'm going to wait a second for them to open. And we'll start with, I guess, whichever one it lands on, which I think is the koozie. So we've already got the black koozie layer selected. We need to switch to rotary view, which all these templates have a rotary and a horizontal view for the two logo types we do. This is the rotary, so we're going to right click on it and relink it. Find the file we just made and relink that in, and then just save it as a JPEG, because that, in this case, that's all we needed was the JPEG, because in this brochure it's set up that way. Some of the newer ones are different, which you'll see in the other videos. So save it as a JPEG. I'm not going to change the file name because we're not doing the pink, we're just doing the black, so the name doesn't matter. So we can close that, it's done. And then we need the white Tum 28. So we're going to switch to the white layer, switch to the horizontal or rotary layer, and relink the file just like we did to the Shawnee EPS. So now we can save as a JPEG. In the Z-Links JPEG. Now I will, just for the sake of clarity, delete that BK. So that one is done. And now we need the red Tum 20. So I'll find the red layer and change this to the rotary layer and relink it. So now we're ready to save this as a JPEG. And I would change the name to RD for red, just so no mistakes are made. And it also will remind us we need to change it on the brochure, the name of it. On the SWBBK, find the rotary layer and relink it. And save as a JPEG. So now we're ready to relink those into, or link them into our InDesign layout, which we've already got everything ready to go on except these four. So put the koozie in, which you hold, I forgot to mention earlier, I think you select the item, hit Control D, and that, oh, I made a mistake somehow. select the item, Control D, and then you navigate to where the files are, and you relink it. So now it's linked in there. So while we're on this one, we need to change this to RD, and we also need to go to the brochure order form. Whoops. And we're going to make sure that it's red. So on the blanks, I think, oh boy, let me open, this will be an issue because there's so many alternate names for everything. I need to find, we have an item number spreadsheet. So let's take a look because I don't know from memory what the blanks are. So for the red blank, the red 20 ounce, it should be 20 RD and the blank will be RDBL. So for that stainless, it's RDBL. And I don't know why they did this color coding thing. It's kind of a hassle to go change that to red. And change the word to red. 9 times out of 10 they do black, so it won't be such a hassle, but in this case they wanted red, so we have to change it. On the 20 ounce, 20 RD. Oopsie daisy, something just moved. Oh, I don't know how that kept happening. So 20 ounce red, just double check everything and make sure it is correct. And we just need to link the final file. Actually, the final 2 files. I almost missed the white there. 28 ounce. So now you want to look over and make sure the name's correct. The number we put in earlier. Each of these is correct. And we already corrected that, so go ahead and save one more time so the template's saved, and then export as a PDF to the top level Shawnee folder. You will have to change the name. And when you save it, you don't have to mess with any of the settings for the PDF. You just hit export. And there will be a little exporting animation up in the top middle of the InDesign bar there, toolbar. So I'm just kind of, okay, that's done. And when you close it, it'll ask you to save again. I mean, you can hit yes. You don't have to. It's probably a good idea to. So now we're done with that one, and we can send them the file. Some files, when it's the final form, we send them to Diana for printing. I think this one will have to be checked. I'm not 100% sure on this, but for now, I'll send it to Brian. And I'm actually going to ask him in the email for VW fundraising, do I need to send you these PDFs or Diana, like with the final PDFs for Megado? We do VW so little that, like in the past, I sent everything to Brian, but more recently, I've started sending certain things to Diana. That's why I'm having to ask. So I'll get clarity on that. But basically, we're done. You would just email Brian, or in this case, you'll be sending these to me. So you would email me the final PDF, and then I'll send it to whoever it belongs to after that. So I'm sending it off, and we are done. So that's VW. They use the slightly older, kind of in between system we use. And there's an even older way we used to do things that some of the schools still haven't been updated on. And that's because we don't use them very often or at all anymore. So that's the reason it's kind of like that. Some of the new ones like Megado have a different, cleaner, faster system. But that's just how VW is for now. So that's it. That's how you do a VW brochure.